G'day guys. Some of you may be able to see behind me that I've got the gorgeous white gums and the red earth, and it's not typical of the landscapes that I share with you on the channel. And that's because I'm not in Perth and I'm not in the southwest. I've travelled somewhere between 14 and 16 hours over today and yesterday with fellow photographer Hamish Stubbs. I'll add his details in the description below. Together we've driven up here and we're going to do a landscape adventure over the next 2 to 3 days in the beautiful area of Karijini National Park. The gorge is just behind me here, as you can see. It goes down around about 40 to 50 metres. Really impressive. We're going to make our way down there and then hike our way along the bottom through to a circular pool and hopefully get a landscape image. So let's go. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a website, a domain or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace. The pathway down here is little more than a rock scramble really. They have actually cemented some of the rocks in here, but it's a little bit dangerous, a little bit tricky. You've got to watch your step. Whoop, just like that. Be a lot worse if it was wet, but it hasn't actually rained here in 3 years, we were told by the local volunteers. The rock face is very smooth, so with a little bit of dust you can slip and then go straight over. So just with a little bit of care, take our time to get down here and we should be right. Once we're down, I think it's a reasonably flat and nice walk along the bottom. This particular gorge isn't all that hard to walk along because at the base there's all of these big slabs that just provide nice easy steps to step along. You've still got to check your footsteps as you go through, but still it makes it a lot easier. There's not too much climbing once you're down here. So even though it hasn't rained, there is still water down the bottom here, which is excellent. We've still got a couple of small waterfalls that we're going to be able to get a composition with. Hamish is just in the background there, with what looks like his Tamron wide angle, and putting on some filters there to try and control the light by the looks of it. But he's going to have this little waterfall that is just at the bottom there, somewhere in his image, which is going to anchor it quite nicely. I'm going to head on up and see whether I can find something else to shoot. This place is incredible, and I imagine it's going to be a little bit challenging to capture it all on camera for you. These gorges are created through lots and lots of water flow that happens during the wet season. But as I said, they haven't had much rain recently, any in the last 3 years. But to give you some idea of how ferocious that water is, that force behind me there is 1, 2 and three boulders that are just leaning up against each other, and they've obviously been pushed down with the water. So this is certainly not a place I'd want to be standing when the water was flowing through at full pace. So as far as composition is concerned, I'm looking for those things that I've actually already mentioned to you as I'm describing the environment. I'm looking for elements in the rock. It might be some patterns or some textures, small little waterfalls, any of the small trees or ferns, maybe even one of the paperbark images as well. But they're the sorts of things that I'm looking for, not all at the one time, but when I'm looking for a nice composition, something like that that'll anchor the image or at least be an important part of the image. So we've made it down to circular pools. It really is beautiful. There is a little bit of water, probably from the springs, just coming through the rocks in the far face of the cliffs as we overlook circular pool itself here. You'll probably be able to hear the noise of the water slapping against this rock. And it really is very, very peaceful to listen to. So I've had a bit of a scout around, a bit of an explore to try and find some probably foreground interests. The main event, of course, are the pools, the reflections. There's a little bit of waterfall, but they're going to be pretty hard to pick up. You've got this cliff face here, and you've got a little bit of light. I'll just turn you around. You've got a little bit of light just up there. It's going to be blown out with the video camera, but that is where the sun is coming down and is just hitting the opposite face of the gorge there. And so I'm trying to compose a shot here where it just catches that in the top right hand corner. There's a little, you won't be able to see it, but there's a little white gum that is perched precariously off the edge of the cliff or the face of the gorge there, and if I can get that in my composition, it'll be a nice little element. The biggest challenge here, of course, is exposure. I don't know how many stops of light there is here, but that's going to be the biggest challenge. So I've mounted the camera here on the tripod. I'm overlooking the water, circular pool, and I've got an f-stop of 13, ISO 64 of course, and I'm taking a series of shots at different shutter speeds just to make sure that I get detail in the shadows and detail in the highlights. So the latest shot that I've just taken that I think has captured enough detail in the whitest part of the image, which is where the sun is hitting the cliffs and that tree, that was a shutter speed of 1/40th. That's where I finished up. I started with a shutter speed of 1.6 of a second, so it was quite slow. So the way that I've composed this image is I've got some of these plants here. I'm not too sure what they are, but there's a little opening here where I'm able to see through, and I'm using the trees on either side of the shot to kind of just frame the image a little bit. I'm getting some of the waterfalls in the bottom left, and of course I've got the cliffs in the top right hand corner. So yeah, should be a nice image. I'm pretty happy with this being my first image, and it's always good to have one in the can. So now I can relax, explore a little bit more, and see what else this area and location can give me in terms of compositions. We've been exploring here looking for different compositions, and I found one on the side here that's basically straight at the water that's coming out of the rocks opposite the pool there. So I've got the 17-35 on the D850, pretty wide out. What I'm doing is I'm taking a quite a wide shot, and I'm probably in the end going to crop it to be something like a 3x1. I do tend to like those 3x1s, but I'm cropping it out so that I'm not getting any of the light, any of those really bright areas. So it's just the one shot this time. I'll just check the settings. I'm at f10 because I've got some of the reeds in the foreground. I've got part of the bush here. There's a bit of a frame on the left hand side, and I've got this rock in the bottom right hand corner, which is probably going to stay there in the final crop. And then, yeah, basically it is the waterfalls, and then some of the bush and the ferns around it, which looks really, really nice. And I've got a couple of the rocks just in the pool there on the left-hand side, just to give it a little bit of balance. I think instead of having them in the centre, I put them on the right-hand side there. So I'm looking forward to seeing this one. This image, I think, is going to be all about colour. I've got some amazing greens in the foreground, and the red rock, as the light is being bounced around the gorge here, is just incredible. This area is very similar to Zion National Park, where you get that glow, that Zion glow in the gorges there, and I think we've got our own Karijini glow happening as the light is being bounced around. It's quite warm now because it's quite late in the afternoon. Anyway, we've been walking around for ages, exploring, and we're a bit knackered, so we're going to take this opportunity of diving into that beautiful pool there, cooling off and taking a bath. I'll grab the remote here and I'll take this shot. So after our swim, we had a bit more of an explore around, and we walked back up the gorge. It really was fantastic. And we decided that we were going to be up the top of the gorge for sunset. Unfortunately, sunset wasn't really good, but I have managed to capture the scene behind me. There were some clouds. You might be able to see the clouds off in the distance, but they're not really picking up much colour. So that was a bit of a shame. But this is only our first day, and we actually only arrived around about lunchtime. So we've got a couple more days in the national park itself. We're staying tonight at Dales Gorge, and then a couple of nights at the other end of the park, closer to Tom Price. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you don't know who Squarespace are, they provide an easy-to-use platform for building your website. It doesn't matter whether you want to start a blog, create an online portfolio for your images, or just a place to share your photography projects. Squarespace have a heap of features that you can easily add to your website, along with a huge range of templates that you can choose from to help you get the look and feel you're after. Backed by 24/7 award-winning customer service. I've been using Squarespace for years, and I can genuinely recommend them. You can start your free trial at squarespace.com, and if you do check them out and you want to go ahead with your website, go to squarespace.com/Andrew Marr, or use the discount code Andrew Marr to get 10% off your first purchase. Anyway, we're going to head back to camp. It's around about a 400 or 500 metre walk back to where we've got the car all set up for us. Cook some tea, and then we're back out for sunrise tomorrow. Yet to decide exactly where that's going to happen. If you enjoyed this video or the images that I captured, please give the video a like, subscribe if you haven't already. But until next time, guys, thanks very much for watching.